All right, the Super Bowl is over. I don't know if how many people know this. The Chiefs are not coming back to win. I know there were a lot of people holding out hope. Will Brinson, senior NFL writer, CBSSports.com, 1 week removed from the game, which obviously we covered extensively 7 days ago. I thought it would be cool to kind of dig into these two teams because they're the two betting favorites to come back and run this for the third time in 4 seasons. And whether we believe it or not, am I crazy? But the Eagles have almost $25 million of cap space right now, although there are some, Josh Sweat could opt out, and I believe Zach Bond, and probably should opt out of his contract. So there are some things for them to do, but they've got cap room.
Yeah, and they have a lot of young talent, too. We talked about it last week, but you lose, maybe a blind spot for me when it comes to football is, the fact that Philly lost Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox, and I thought that would impact them more. They're going to lose Kellen Moore. Obviously, they lost Kellen Moore, who's going to the Saints. They can figure out how to run the offense. Kellen Moore did a great job, particularly in the playoffs. But I think that that's one of those cases where the playoff run really helped boost him in terms of how people view him publicly. He did let go by the Cowboys and the Chargers in back-to-back years. Vic Fangio is coming back. The Eagles are going to be good next year. They're going to Saquon. If he has the same season he had this past year, I think that would be pretty shocking. There's probably a good chance he regresses a little bit, but I still expect a monster season from Saquon behind that offensive line that is going to be intact for a while. Lane Johnson probably getting up there in terms of probably time to start asking the question about when he's going to retire. But right. I fully expect to be back next year. They replaced Kelce. It's a great offensive line. They have Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown on the outside. Dallas Goedert, they'll have to find another tight end eventually, but he's still operating at a high level. And then Hurts is kind of a perfect fit for that offense because of his leadership qualities, his ability to throw down the field when he needs to, and then, the tush-push stuff. So that offense is going to be what it was, which is, efficient on the ground and a dangerous running attack with the ability to explode in the pass game. And then it looks like the defense is just awesome now. That's the difference maker where, Jalen Carter is going to be an annual candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. If they bring back Sweat and Bond, I think they'll try to, but Howie Roseman showed an ability to find, ways to replace guys on that defense in free agency when he needs to. And, you see it 7 years removed from their last title, they sort of rebuilt the roster in a way that, if you're going to say, the Chiefs are the dynasty that's live, even though they lost, the Super Bowl. If you're going to pick a team that's more likely to repeat, I think I would absolutely take the Eagles over the Chiefs. One, because of the roster, and then two, because the NFC just profiles as easier to navigate than the AFC.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of reasons why you'd certainly think the Eagles are the best chance in a while to repeat, even without having. And I am in no way trying to slight Jalen Hurts. I just refuse based on winning a Super Bowl, and I think he's excellent. I know how people will perceive this. I do not think he is not an outstanding quarterback, but he's not a Mahomes, Allen, Lamar Jackson, who can absolutely do it on their own. And granted, Hurts has the Super Bowl that Allen and Jackson don't have. So part of that is...
Pete Prisco went on CBS Sports HQ this past weekend, and said he would take Trevor Lawrence over Jalen Hurts for the next
silly.
5 years. And, buddy, it went over like you would expect.
Silly.
We were dragging him on text messages.
Yeah, you should.
It's like they put it on Instagram. He's getting killed for it. And but I think it sort of speaks to the way that the way that you're talking about Hurts. And I'm not saying you're saying that, but just he is a really good quarterback for what he is. But I don't know that he's necessarily like this complete upper echelon quarterback, even though he did just win Super Bowl MVP.
Right. Look, there's a lot of quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls. I really don't want to drag this segment into that conversation, but he is clearly a top 10 quarterback in the league. He's probably higher than that. He's probably like a top 6 or 7 quarterback in the league. But the Eagles' offense is perfect for what he does. And because of that offense, his ability to run, he is a very good, not great distributor of the ball, but a very good one. And he's smart. The leadership qualities, all of that speaks to he is, especially with players around him, he is well suited to bring them back. Like they could make a decision. They don't even have to bring back Josh Sweat if they don't want to. Now, he was awesome in the Super Bowl, and you could have made the argument that he was the MVP over Jalen Hurts. But if he wants a ton of money, they're going to have to pay Zach Bond. I mean, maybe Bryce Huff has something next year because they signed him to a big free agent contract last offseason. That one didn't work out. A lot of the other stuff that they did work. Let me go to the Chiefs. Travis Kelce back because that's a pretty big cap savings if you cut Travis Kelce.
I was going to say it's a pretty big matzo ball hanging out there.
I mean, it's like $17 million in cap savings, and they need help on their offensive line, and they could use another. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins wasn't great. Juju Smith-Schuster wasn't great. They could really use a top wide receiver.
Yeah, so the thing with the Chiefs, specifically on Kelce, I mean, I don't know if you watched or listened to New Heights, like his podcast. I'm sure you heard. But listen to that, and it was the Tuesday after the Super Bowl, I think, maybe even the Tuesday after the Super Bowl, and I mean, my thought was this guy is retiring.
Right.
Just listening to him. Now that's 48 hours removed from a devastating loss. He said it was the most confident he's ever been heading into a Super Bowl. He's played in a lot of them. They really believed they were going to win. I think a lot of us believe the Chiefs were going to win.
Sure.
And the other thing too is something he said. And I wrote about this for CBSSports.com, but something he said made me look it up, and I was really stunned. He has played 19 extra games since 2020. So if you're an NFL player who played 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, you can play a max of whatever, do the math on 16 and they switch to 17 for 3 years, whatever it is. He's played an extra 19 games. So that is a ton of football to tack on if you're his age. And he pointed out that it's not even the actual games; it's more like being in the building and grinding on game plans and grinding to be ready, and just the grind. He made it seem like it's not as much fun for him anymore. And he's dating Taylor Swift. He's he can host SNL, whatever. He's got this podcast.
Yeah.
He's got literally. He can get $10 million a year from a network to be an analyst. And so I think that the pull of all this other stuff, coupled with just being so worn out from playing essentially an extra season inside of 5 seasons or 4 seasons, whatever it is, just has him at the point where he probably walks away. But we also see guys all the time who look like they're going to do that, and then you get a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a month or so removed from that game, and you're like, all right, no, I want to run it back one more time. I do think he thought they were going to win. He thought they were going to three-peat, and he was going to walk off on a three-peat, which would be a heck of a way to go. But this wouldn't be all that bad either.
No, I'd like.
And by the way, Rashee Rice, he suffered that ACL injury mid-season, so he should be good to go. Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy is a pretty good starting point, but I agree they need an outside guy just to kind of diversify what they do, a big body, like DeAndre Hopkins, but in his prime and not, washed.
Yeah, and I also think that an objective look at Travis Kelce says that he's not the same player. He's certainly good in spots, but he's not the same player.
It is bad. It is bad.
Yeah, but I don't really think that was on him. I thought that was on Mahomes and really the Eagles' pass rush creating all those things. But throughout the course of the season, Travis Kelce was not that productive of a player. And
he turned it on a little bit at the start of the playoffs.
Yeah.
had the big game against Houston, and then you sort of thought he was just going to have this big Super Bowl, and he just did not. No. Which is, I mean, like I think it's entirely possible he's just hitting a wall, and he's like, dude, this is just it's just too much. And if he's Mahomes, a lot of these guys have played these extra games, but he is. I mean, he's up there in age.
No question about it. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs made the decision. If he doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs made that decision because they do need some cap room, although you can find cap room anywhere. They can just restructure Mahomes probably and find some cap space. Will Brinson, senior NFL writer, CBSSports.com. He sorts the Sunday pile. Let's sort with 3 quarterbacks, and then we'll head out here. Aaron Rodgers was told by the Jets to go pound sand. My guess is that he balked at the things that they told him. If you want to be part of this, no McAfee, have to be part of all of our off-season training regimen and all those things. And he wasn't willing to do that. The Jets probably knew he wouldn't be willing to do that, so they basically put the onus back on Rodgers. Where does he end up?
I think he probably ends up. So I'm torn here. I think the Steelers make a ton of sense from a roster perspective. If you think Rodgers still has something left in the tank, and we saw Favre leave the Jets and certainly have success in Minnesota, which is the other spot I think that Rodgers should at least consider if they're interested. Because if you got Minnesota, to me is perfect because they had Sam Darnold. He was great last year, probably a top 5 MVP candidate, resurgent season, going to get paid by somebody. But you also drafted J.J. McCarthy, and if you're going to you can't really pay Darnold this huge deal and then also want to go to McCarthy. But you could pay Rodgers on a 1-year deal and have the option to let McCarthy kind of sit, and I'm not saying like sit and learn behind Aaron Rodgers, whatever it is, but he had a setback during the season on that preseason injury he suffered, and so you just can't know right now if he's going to be ready to start the year. Rushing a guy who's never played in a regular season NFL snap to me feels risky as heck. I would much rather go sign Rodgers for a year, see how he does in that KOC system. I think he'll be great because all quarterbacks are great with Kevin O'Connell.
Right.
And then you have McCarthy there as a backup if Rodgers is completely washed or, gets hurt. So, that to me is a really nice pairing. Plus, you get the whole, literally following the exact path as his predecessor, Brett Favre, which would just be very, very, delightfully NFC North Schadenfreude.
I can't wait till the stories about wearing Crocs comes out. All right.
Lord.
Is Matthew Stafford back with the Rams, or is he somewhere else?
They signed his brother-in-law to the Giants. Hired his brother-in-law, which I think is kind of interesting. I mean, Kelly Stafford, his wife, is out in these social media streets, acting like it is over. And the Cooper Kupp thing, I just think really hit hard for Stafford and the realization of what they're going to be. If you're the Rams, I mean, I am currently. I know we're on the phone, but I'm currently wearing a Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, homage, in NFL Jam shirt, a Rams, Stafford's my guy. I'm a Rams fan because of Stafford. I'll probably root for whatever team he goes to next, but it does feel like letting go of Cooper Kupp, and they were the most 3 wide receiver heavy team in the NFL last year. Now you have Demarcus Robinson, who's a free agent. They're going to trade Kupp. Tutu Atwell's a free agent, so it's basically. You have Puka Nacua, who's fantastic, but then Jordan Whittington, who's pretty good as a rookie and I think underrated and will be a good player. But you just don't have a ton of stuff for that offense that they want to run, and it sort of feels like, and it's crazy too because they're really close to beating the Eagles, who won the Super Bowl.
Right.
It sort of feels like maybe the Rams are headed for a reboot. So I'll say the Giants, but with zero confidence whatsoever.
And Sam Darnold goes where?
Who wants to give Sam Darnold $40 million a year after without having Kevin O'Connell on your staff? Man, I don't know.
New Orleans?
Yeah, New Orleans can make some sense, I guess. I mean, I feel like Kellen Moore was kind of in on Derek Carr. By the way, they played each other in college, which is insanely weird.
That is strange.
Kellen Moore destroyed Derek Carr in college. It's like 57-17 or something like that. Boise beat Fresno. But, New Orleans, New Orleans is kind of cap-strapped. God, I don't know. I think it's tough to pinpoint where Darnold goes because all these teams in the top of the draft all the quarterback needy teams are up top. I'll say the Raiders for Sam Darnold. I'll say the Raiders.
Will Brinson, senior NFL writer, CBSSports.com. I appreciate your time. We sort the Sunday pile, even on Mondays. We will chat again, sir.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon, man.
If I was going to handicap it, I would say that Aaron Rodgers doesn't play.
Yeah, it's looking like that.
I think there's more of a chance that he doesn't play than he does. But Minnesota is an interesting spot.
Yeah.
I just don't think that.
He might have a full-time gig with Pat McAfee now. That might be his next gig.
He doesn't need a full-time gig, but he can go on talk football
right, yeah.
every Tuesday.
In his car.
Yeah. Or from his dark room.
Yeah.
Wherever that is.
Yeah.